Hey there, Oxford. Just wanted to create this video as a refresher, and hopefully it'll get into the right hands so we can actually take this problem and solution and go forward on creating it. The problem that we identified is this huge problem that's really well known within the commercial real estate industry, which is the broker problem. Not to say that they're a problem, but the opportunity cost that they are to you as a landlord is huge. Really, they have a lot of the transaction volume, they have a lot of the relationships and market data. And for the amount that they cost you, we really think that there should be a better alternative looking forward in the next 5, 10 years. We're not saying take out brokers completely, since if you were to just take out brokers now, there's obviously a huge amount of downside that could proceed. But what we're saying is at least start to implement and work towards a solution that, if fully implemented within the next 5 to 10 years, will give Oxford that extra gain. And will give them that extra gain within something very important, right? The relationship between them and their tenants, which is one of their main sources of income. To first start off, the journey we kind of took was, let's quantify this problem. How big of a problem is this overall for Oxford? We realized the opportunity cost of brokers is actually a lot. They cost tens of millions of dollars every single year. And we looked at two main case studies, the first being the entire city of Toronto, and we looked at things like average square foot per office. We looked at the amount of floors in the average office building. And we also looked at how much the broker takes for both Toronto and New York. And you can see how we got to these numbers and how we broke them down within the subsequent document that we also provided. Now we know that on paper and from talking to people that the money that the brokers cost is tens of millions of dollars. And that's when we do all the math. But obviously we wanted to confirm this with leasing managers themselves, since the leasing managers are the ones who are actually spending money on the brokers. We talked to leasing managers at not only Oxford, but also Brookfield and Morguard. And the first thing we wanted to see was, hey, if I take out the broker from this equation, can the leasing manager and the tenant themselves actually interact to do the deal by themselves without a broker? And we realized that that is possible. We talked to the senior director of leasing at Brookfield, and one of the things that even he said was that everything could be done if he just was able to talk to the tenant. And if the tenant didn't come with a broker, he could do the entire transaction by himself. So we knew that there was no need for a broker. The second thing we wanted to do to make sure we really validated the opportunity cost of a broker and the problem was, see how many times you guys use a broker, what percent time. We lowballed it to somewhere around 50%. And when talking to your head of VP for the US region of leasing, we realized that it's actually more than 50%. So you guys are actually using a broker a lot of the time. And this kind of helped us validate, okay, well, Oxford's using a broker a lot of the time, and we know that they cost a lot, meaning that this is actually spending, or they're actually spending a lot of money on this. The last thing we wanted to identify was, what current solutions or approaches are they taking to solve this? And when we talked to people at Morguard, we realized that the best approach that they take so far is leasing signs. And obviously, this is aside from the reach out that they do to their internal networks. But leasing signs have been really effective. But obviously, if these methods have been or are actually as effective as they should be, then nobody would have to pay brokers. But that's not the case, since the broker problem is still something that costs a lot. The last type like tidbit of information we got that summed up or validated the problem was this analogy that Dean gave with brokers. He compared them to travel agents, or they were kind of like travel agents before Expedia came into the equation. You know, they managed almost the entire transaction. They acted as like a middleman. And so once we knew that this was a problem, before we got into creating any sort of solution, we first want to talk to tenants, because there's two sides to the equation, right? There's the landlord, which is Oxford, so you guys, and then there's the tenants. We talk to tenants or heads of real estate from 6 different companies. We talk to Interact, TELUS, Twitter, BDC, which is a AAA covenant, and then the two companies you see on the left-hand side, that's Crowdlinker and Envoy. So these are multi-million-dollar startups, because we kind of want to get the wide range of tenant insight. The main insights that we got, or the first thing we wanted to hear, was, do they actually come with a broker a lot of the time? The lowest number we got for the percent of time that they come with a broker was 75%. So we know that majority of the time they're using a broker within these transactions. We wondered, hey, why do they use a broker in the first place? And we realized that a lot of that is because they don't feel like they can currently be transparent with the landlord. If the broker could just very transparently know and very transparently talk to a landlord, then very easily they'd be able to form a relationship and also be able to get the space that they wanted. But currently, that's not the case, because there's no sort of medium in between the two parties to create that sort of relationship and even start that off. So we know that they use a broker a lot. And we know that the reason why they go to a broker is because there's no alternative currently to being transparent with the landlord. Just wanted to add on that tenants also go to brokers because they have a lot of the market data. So things like market rates, etc. They know a lot of the landlords. So they have a lot of the relationships within the market. And then they also have a really good ability to negotiate these leases because of that unique market data and insight that they have. And obviously, these are things that, in our view, could definitely be automated and replaced in a sense. And I'll talk about this and I'll show within the mockup later that you'll be able to see, but just wanted to pop in to clarify that. The last information we got was that they know that when they come with the broker, the prices are higher. So they do understand that there is a pain point when coming with a broker. And obviously, they do prefer that 25% when they don't have to come with a broker. Now, we validated this was a problem for both the tenant and for the landlord. And before we got into the solution, I just want to say that there were two assumptions that we made, and I'll kind of explain why we made these assumptions. The first assumption is that heads of real estate are comfortable with negotiating the lease on their own. We know that the reason why we made this assumption, and we know that it's a correct one, is because when we talk to the head of real estate at TELUS, if I just move back to this slide, you see that they use a broker 75% of the time. So for that other 25%, they actually didn't use a broker, which means that that in that 25% of the time, they can negotiate without the broker. We don't know if they're comfortable, but we know that it is possible. So that's why we made the first assumption. We don't know if they're comfortable, but we know it's possible. The second assumption is that a platform that we can create can fully give the same amount of value as a broker in terms of the little details. When we talked to the head of real estate at Interact, one of the things that she said was when she was touring these properties, that broker being there helped give little insights, just as the HVAC unit got updated, etc. And that's the reason why we made this insight that our platform could fully provide the same amount of detail as a broker in terms of the little insights. And we'll explain why, and I'll explain why as I walk through the mockup, how we're compensating for these little tidbits of insight. The proposal that we have for a solution is really simple. It's a platform that allows tenants to find preferred office spaces, send offers to lease, understand and negotiate leases, and then obviously sign off on these leases with the leasing manager. I'll kind of walk you through the vision or what we've created so far of the platform. If you can just see right here, there's three main buckets you could take. Let's just say we're looking for an office space, and let's just say we need 30,000 square feet. Usually companies have preference. So let's just say we're a startup and we're looking to expand to 2 floors over the next few years, to 2 floors. And the floor range we're looking for is, let's say, the 20 to 22nd floor range. The next thing that a lot of companies want to choose is the location. So let's just say we're in Toronto, we're looking at around the Yorkville location. All right, next thing is the price. Obviously, this is something that a lot of tenants cared about. These are just arbitrary numbers. You can go in and edit them, but let's just say for now, those numbers are fine. And let's say we're looking for a lease of 3 years because we're a startup, so nothing too long. The next thing we'll just state is that we are a startup, and we'll just state these that we'd like. So let's just say we want nearby transit, obviously. We want some car and bike parking. Are we thinking about subleasing? Let's just say yes for now. And anything else we'd like to mention? A lot of tenants that we talk to, one of the people who runs the head of real estate at Twitter and Envoy, one of the things that they said was that a lot of startups care about open office space. So being able to input things like that into our platform is important. So let's just say they're looking for open space type concept in terms of their design. And we can just give the example of Gusto. Gusto is just another startup that has a really nice office. Now, what we'll see right here is that we're actually provided with a place, and there's pictures of the inside and the outside. We have a little description right here with the floor and square foot availability, as well as the price per square foot. Now, the optimal lease length is 4 to 5 years, which is why it's highlighted in yellow since we did input 3 years. We also have the max TI allowance, and for the max TI allowance and price per square foot, we compare those to the market rates. And that's usually what a broker would do in most cases, or even a consultant as well. We allow for all the amenities, and you can see there's bike parking, as well as it's like nearby to transit, etc. It's 10-minute walk to Union Station. One of the other things we added was that we added a section where you can hear from current tenants, because what we noticed from talking to these tenants is they do want to know what type of person the landlord is before even getting into business with them. So that's why we added this feature. And let's just say in this case, the person wants to check out the space and has already checked out the space. The last piece to our equation is just an AI model that we created. So this is a lease negotiation that we've blurred out the details for, but let's just say we're looking for the section 6 and we're looking to understand this section, obviously, since there's no human involved, we had to create an AI model to do this. And so using a technology called deep learning, we're actually able to gain a quick summary of the entire sixth section, as well as some of the main negotiation terms. So you can see that it talks about the elevator use, talks about the AC use, and you can say if you agree or disagree. And then the last part that we're able to do here is say example, we disagree, we're able to save this disagreement to a negotiation list that we can then provide for later on. And so kind of to go back to the main value props of what I just showed you right there, to sum it up, for companies like yourself, or they will know, or the tenant themselves will know that since they're coming without a broker, they get that discount. So that's the first incentive for them coming onto the platform. And overall, it's not discounted. It's just the regular market price. And once we've talked to leasing managers, we know that usually they'll up the price when they know that a tenant is coming with a broker versus without a broker, because you have to compensate for that. The second reason why tenants are incentivized is because based on whatever the tenant would usually tell a broker, we're now allowing for that entire transaction to be transparent. Whatever a tenant would have told a broker before, they're exactly just telling us, and we're conveying that information right to Oxford and creating a huge, nice list for both of the parties to negotiate by themselves. So it allows for that transparency. One of the other things that I didn't put on the slide, but I do just want to note, is that there is a sort of dirty dance between the tenant and the broker, in which one of the things that we heard was that you never, or from the tenant's perspective, they never really know if the broker is trying to help them or hurt them, because the more the broker charges them, or a higher price per square foot that the broker charges the tenant, the more money that they make from the landlord, or more commission. So really, this platform will allow for transparency, since they don't need to care about that little dirty dance in between the two parties. They can just directly go to you. The last reason why is because we do exactly what the broker does. We literally take that lease and we break it down completely for the tenant in the case that they don't have their own like legal representation or market information. And in case like startups, this will help them a lot. The last piece or reason why it's good for you is because it allows very easy offer to leases from tenants that will just be able to come on the platform, very simply be able to check out the space. You get leads very simply, and really there's no downside to adding your platform to this, as there's no cost and it's a lot less than what a broker would usually charge. So there really is only upside for both you and the tenant. And on the tenant side, we're doing the same thing as the broker by allowing for the negotiation. And on your side, we're literally just allowing for more tenants to come as leads. The current competitors in the space, or current people who are trying to solve this problem, like I said before, aren't really solving it head on. There's two examples, 10x and LoopNet. They are some of the most heavily trafficked commercial real estate marketplaces. But the problem is, and I can even just show you right here, even if we just quickly go to 10x.com, what we'll see is, if we just scroll down right here to some of their featured properties, a lot of their properties are here. Let's just click, I don't know, this one. The thing with their properties is that their properties, or when a tenant will come on this platform, the person that they'll contact isn't actually the landlord. It's just another broker. So essentially, these platforms like 10x and like LoopNet are just glorified broker or online brokerage firms. They literally just allow for an online broker to be present. So the 10x and the LoopNets aren't really helping out with that. We know that in other cases, there are startups such as LoopNet, or sorry, such as Squarefoot, that are also trying to solve this problem. But the problem with Squarefoot, if we go on their website, and if you actually go through the forum, you'll see that they're literally just a glorified broker platform. They're an online broker. All that they provide is just an easier way to do this online for a tenant. So the tenant will actually not go to them because they still have to pay more. And that's what we've heard from tenants as well. And same thing with Hello Office. Hello Office is just a better version of Squarefoot as well. And so overall, kind of wanting to realign on why we're better than a broker in terms of both the tenant aspect and in terms of your aspect. For the broker, in terms of the brokers cost a lot, whereas we cost almost absolutely nothing for you and for the tenant as well in comparison. The second reason why is because for the tenant, we're transparent compared to the lack of transparency that there is right now. And the last thing is we do the exact same thing as a broker would, but all online. So essentially, we're not providing something that's worse than the current solution. We're providing something that's the same and also better, because we cost nothing and we're transparent. So it's literally just a win-win situation in both cases. Going back, the last thing that we want to do to validate some of the assumptions that we made is get LOIs from tenants stating that they would use this platform once it's developed. That'll help us solve the second assumption we made, which was that people would use this because of the small details that the brokers provide. So if we're able to prove with the LOIs that tenants would use this over a broker and would actually utilize this platform to find real estate properties that they'd like to get into, then this will allow for insurance from you that you know that our platform is actually something that tenants want. Because if tenants want this, then we're all on the same page here. Really, we think that this, or what we're proposing here, isn't something that you can implement like right now, but it is something that if started today will have huge benefits in the long run. And hopefully from what I've been able to present in these little few minutes, you've been able to see that this platform will add an immense amount of value if invested into right now. Overall, I just wanted to say thank you so much. And if there's any other thoughts or any other feedback you have, we'd love to hear from you. And we'll definitely, and if you're interested, we can definitely keep you updated on how the LOIs go. Thanks. See ya.